Hey, Southern Sage here, and we are back for round 3 of the bug out bag, right? So we've talked about why you need one. We've talked about the first aid and hygiene supplies that should be in it. Now we're going to look at food and water, okay? So I want to scroll over a little bit. So for food and water, food particularly, you want things that don't require cooking, that pack a lot of calories into a small package, which generally means you're going to be looking at some kind of animal product, and things that are shelf stable for a very long time. Because let's be real, whenever you build this thing, you're going to set it in a closet, and it's great to think that we're going to come back every 6 months and refresh these supplies, but we're not all that great at it. So things I've put in mine are canned Vienna sausages, right? Spam falls in this category too. Not a thing I would normally eat, but it packs a caloric wallop, right? Lots of fat. The pre-packaged tuna in oil. Now, normally I buy tuna in water because I don't really need the extra fat. In this situation, you want the fat. So I've got several of those, and then I've got just a can of soup, right? So if I can find a way to heat it up, and we're going to look at fire in just a second, this is a much more nutritionally complete food that is filling and does not require a can opener. Now, I do include a can opener in the pack, and there are iterations of foods as I've rotated through things where I have put just regular canned goods in here because they are generally shelf stable. The steel can protects them if the pack gets jostled around a bunch. So a can opener is a great thing to have in the food and water section of your pack. For dishes, you want something that's not breakable. So these are just plastic campware. You can get metal campware, which is also great. This is another thing that you should totally Facebook Marketplace. Like, they charge a ridiculous amount of money for campware in the store. Does not need to be fancy. You need something metal. So I have a metal mixing bowl and a metal pot. Whenever we get to tools, I'll show you the camp stove that is in this kit to be used. But these can both go on a fire and heat something up, right? Whether that's just heating up water to purify it, heating up that can of soup, heating up something else that we have along. Okay, so you want metal, at least one metal pot and at least one metal mixing bowl in the kit. You need some form of fire, and preferably two. So for anyone who's done any look at emergency preparation, there's the saying of 3 is 2, 2 is 1, 1 is none, which is alluding to the fact that things will go wrong. So Murphy's Law applies. If you only have one way to start a fire, and that one way is this lighter, if you actually have to use this kit, something is going to go wrong with this lighter, and you're not going to have a way to start a fire. And being able to start a fire can be the difference between hypothermia and not, warm food and not, sterile dressings and not. So being able to make heat is incredibly important. So I have this. I also have just traditional strike on the box matches. And in the tools I have strike anywhere matches, right, which are a little more flexible and can usually still be lit off even if things are damp. So you need more than one way to start a fire. Then you need to not forget silverware, right? So this is a common thing. You think about the plates and the bowls, and then you're looking at a thing of soup and you got no way to eat it, or you got no way to cut something up, right? So simple fork, spoon, knife, silverware in a bag. You want some kind of an insulated cup with a lid. So a really nice thermos is cool because you can also, if you can find a way to boil water, then you can include beans and rice, those kind of slow cooked things. If you have a really good thermos, you can pour boiling water on those foods, screw the top on, and let it just cook for several hours while you are getting wherever it is you need to be or doing whatever it is you have to do in the situation you find yourself. And when you come back, you will have cooked beans and rice to eat. So from a low input thing, that tool is really, really handy. But you want some kind of an insulated glass, some kind of a glass, right? Because you still need to be able to drink out of something. I include candles with this, not because you necessarily cook on them, but because if you can get something to light, then you can light one of these and have an ongoing fire that you can work on. If you're trying to build a fire, or you can drip wax on something to help it catch fire later. And these are just 50-cent cheapo candles from the grocery store, right? So always have a couple of those in the pack. And then we get to water. So if you are actually on foot and out in the wild for several days, you are probably not going to carry on hand enough water to cover that. There is a part of this pack that is a 2-gallon thermos that would come with me so that I would have fresh water on hand. But if I got to go 3 days, that 2 gallons isn't enough. And certainly when I consider that this pack also has to cover a portion of my kids and my spouse, so we need a way to purify water. So in this kit, I have 3 different ways to do that. The first one is the cooking, right? I can boil it. This would all also be after I had run that water through some of those rags we looked at yesterday to get out any dirt or sand or particulate crud that I don't want to drink, right? So filter it through that. I include a mason jar. It could be a peanut butter jar if you don't want to use a glass jar, but something I can put water into, right? So I can filter it through those cloths into this and have water that doesn't have crud in it. Then I can use my pot and boil it. Or these are water purification tablets. They're chlorine tablets. So you're basically making low-key pool water as a way to kill off bacteria that could harm you in the water. There are instructions on the package for how many to use for how much water, so follow those instructions. There are a million different varieties of these, but they are super useful to have on hand. It is very dummy proof. Now when you drink it, it's going to taste like pool water, but it won't kill you. The other one I have is a water pasteurization indicator, and I'm going to zoom in on this one a bit, right? So if you look, it's got this little green wax on the top. So to use this, you pull this chain through so that it hangs with the wax on top. Drop it in here, hold it over the edge, and screw the lid on with this thing full of water. So water is actually safe to drink when it gets up to about 140, 145 degrees. It doesn't have to boil. We boil because we can tell when it boils, right? There's a visual indicator there, but it doesn't have to get that hot to be safe. So this wax in the tube will melt at 145 degrees, and it will fall down to the bottom of the tube, which means if I have this suspended in the water and I put that jar out in the sun on a halfway warm day, the sun will heat it up enough to pasteurize the water. And as soon as the wax falls, I know that it's warm enough, right? That water is now safe to drink. And because of how this is set up, the next time I just turn it over, pull the tube through, and the wax is now back at the top and I can use it again, right? So this can be used basically indefinitely to demonstrate whether your water is purified. Okay, so Whoppy, this one does cost $10 or $12 to get on Amazon or wherever, but super useful tool, lasts forever. So I think that covers our water and food situation for Mr. Bob. And I will see you tomorrow to talk about tools and things that you might need. All right, so like, subscribe, comment down below if you like the video. Let me know and I'll see you tomorrow.